this meeting to order. I don't have an agenda, but the agenda item is to discuss the money for the CO. Update on the professional service agreement.
Yes, good afternoon. We are chatting about the professional service agreement that we are asking council to approve, and we will do that on tomorrow. So we went to work session last week. So just to recap of what this is, in 2019, the city of Odessa issued a certificate of obligations and set aside $7 million for improvements to the downtown area. Earlier this year, the city issued an RFQ in order to solicit qualifications for design firms for the improvements. The RFQ was issued in March of 2022, and 2 firms submitted proposals. A committee comprised of Downtown Odessa board member, Mr. John Harridge, a TIRZ board member, Craig Stoker, and city staff evaluated the qualifications of each firm. After both firms presented to the committee, a committee selected KDC as the recommended firm to engage for the agreement. The committee considered many things when selecting this group. KDC is local, and we wanted to make sure we are being good stewards of these funds and keep them here in our community when and if possible. KDC agreed to have a representative available and in town through the entire process. The other group that we interviewed and spoke with was not local. They would not have a representative here, and I think their availability was 40% or less from every single person in that firm. KDC's designs really aligned with the committee's hopes for this space. The committee also asked for references for both firms, so we had our interviews, we met with them, they did their whole spiel, we went back, and then we asked for them to provide references. City staff vetted all of those references, and based on that, also KDC came out ahead. KDC Associates of Midland will provide a scope of services to include but not limited to the development of wayfinding and site signage standards, engineering and surveying, ADA improvements, development of a unique multi-purpose urban plaza, and a public engagement plan. KDC will be responsible for all designs and engineering specifications that will be utilized to bid out individual projects. These deliverables will be utilized for the programming of the $7 million, and KDC will be with this project from the start of the design through the finished construction. Part of this will include reaching out to this board in the process once we hire KDC. So I know a lot of confusion has been that this is another master plan, and that we just kind of wanted to clear that up. So the master plan that this board paid to have done and was released earlier this year, that set out an umbrella of what we want to see happen in the next few years moving forward. Now, the next step in that is to hire a design firm, which we've selected KDC, to come in and do exact specifications and give us biddable packages, so then we hand those to the contractors. So we have to have a plan of where we're going, and then we hire a design firm to come in and make all of those plans a reality. They do all of the surveying, they do all of the engineering, everything, to get all of those packages together. We bid those out, then we hire the contractors to come and do it. KDC is responsible for all of that process, working with the contractors, being the liaison between the city and the contractors, and seeing that all the way through the end. So Mr. Kelly Cook is here, and he's going to do his presentation, and then afterwards, if you guys have more questions, we'll be happy to answer those. So, Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Casey, and thank you, board, for having us here. Let me elaborate a little bit. When the selection process takes place, you put together a team. It's not just one firm that we're looking at. And so when the RFQ came out and we started taking a look at this, Yes, KDC is a Midland firm, but we pulled in Landgraf Crutcher, Odessa here. We pulled in Newton Engineering, so both of our engineering firms are Odessa firms. And we pulled in CVA Advertising and Marketing because we felt that they had a good feel on the community. So yes, my address is in Midland. This team is extremely Odessa heavy. And I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that. So we actually took a separate look. We were familiar with your master plan. We took a separate look internally amongst the team to take a look and make sure we were in agreement with what the master plan was talking about. And then visited with the committee, and I'll visit with you a little bit about, our slides. One of the things that it talks about is the Arts and Entertainment District area, and I'm going to elaborate in a little bit why we think this is in your best interest to pursue this with the funds that you have available versus other areas. That is an area that is defined as Jackson Street, just immediately south of the Convention Center, and adjacent to the new Odessa College Park site. It's the only 2 blocks that you have in downtown Odessa that are dead-ended on both ends, both sides. So it makes a very good closed district to take a look at. Additionally, although $7 million is a lot of money, obviously, $7 million can be pocketed in an area like this and make a definite, visible difference. It can provide a catalyst for future development. $7 million on Grant Street or Texas Avenue will basically not be seen by all but a few people. It sounds like a lot of money, and it is, but for that type of an area, you're not going to get very big bang for your dollars on that. And so then we wanted to get into the meat and potatoes of why we felt this was the area to address. One, the construction of this is going to be ongoing and take quite a bit of time. We wanted to limit area business disruptions. If the project, for example, was to move forward on Grand Avenue, that turns into full TXDOT jurisdiction. You're looking at a project that could close portions of that area off for its, and the city, the TIRZ board, downtown Odessa, nobody will have any say in that. It's TXDOT regulation, and you're looking at something that could effectively hamper businesses for the full construction period. So you're looking at something from 8 months to 2 years of disruptions along Grand Avenue and the businesses along Grant or Texas, and we felt that that was extremely prohibitive. It provides immediate visible impact to the taxpayers. They will be able to see, grasp, and interact with this area versus a drive-by situation along Grant or Texas. Odessa's been very successful lately with its public-private partnerships, and this links many of those very contiguously, we think, in the city's benefit. It is, as I said before, the only dead-end public block in the area, and it simply invites development. It would complement potential gateway and wayfinding links along Grant or Texas. In other words, if you put $7 million into this district, the plan is structured so that gateway links extending all the way west to Grant would be able to be developed for a lesser sum as funds become available. The bulk of your money is here, and it provides your catalyst work. We can have secondary links of the true gateway areas along Grant or Texas that tie into this site well. The future development of this area is, as you see on site plans, and if you drive through it, is one of the more conducive areas in downtown business facility development. The master plan alluded to alley development of alleyways. This services very nicely the backside, the east side of the businesses along Texas Avenue, provides a great link right there. Something very important is we're trying to get people into downtown. And you have to do that in a way that limits pedestrian vehicular interactions. We need them both, but we can't have them interacting with each other. Putting more people onto Grant or Texas during a construction scenario is dangerous. Getting interactions on a highway is dangerous. I would tell you that already right off the bat, on either one of those streets, just in width, they're 25% wider than the area that we're looking at on Jackson. So immediately you're 25% more expensive. The other is, if it goes on to Grant, your funding is going to have a silent magnifier because it turns into a TxDOT governed project. It also will limit your contractors that are going to be pursuing that work, because XYZ Contracting may pursue a Jackson area plaza type project. They will not pursue something where they have to comply with all the rules, regulations, and bureaucracies of TxDOT. The other factor, and we all know this because we all have clients that are this way, but as soon as TxDOT becomes involved, as great an organization as they are, that $100,000 curb just turned into a $135,000 curb because of all the rules, regulations, and bureaucracy they're having to go. So your money is much better spent along this other area that we're talking about. It brings feet and not tires into downtown. You already have the tires. You already have the people on Grant driving through. What you need is people to come in up during the day and then after hours and stay and spend money and to develop businesses in that way. This does that. It brings pedestrians into downtown. And it concentrates your funding for a future catalyst. If every few years you could say, yes, we're going to have $7 to $10 million that we're going to be able to put into the project and to develop downtown, we may step back and say you might want to look at addressing some of these other areas. Our assumption is $7 million is a whole lot of money. And while the city and TIRZ and other organizations may be able to come in with $100,000 here and $250,000 here and $500,000 there to make dramatic tie-in improvements in these gateway links that we're talking about, I have to question whether the city really is going to be able to come in with $7 to $10 million every 4 or 5 years for the next 15 years in order to get this developed the way it needs to be developed on a large scale. So you start looking at what this might look at, and what you see before you is a simple site plan literally done overnight. It is by no means what we're recommending. It just is to give you some idea of the enhancements that could take place to bring people downtown, to link into Odessa College's Park, to provide gateway enhancements on Texas Avenue and eventually over onto Grant, to bring north-south entities involved and create a more pedestrian-friendly space. We don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to be grand in scheme, something that invites people, something that complements the facilities that are already down here and brings people out onto the street at night. Something that potentially ties all the way into Grant and Texas over time so that people see a visible gateway link from west into east and enhances the area. Again, I don't want you to get too caught up in these renderings because they're done quickly. But with that, it's a very short presentation, and really what I'm here today to do is to answer any concerns and questions that you guys might have as far as the project and proposed.
I mean, I have some of these for Casey, some of them for you.
We'll tag team it.
Okay. I noticed that the bids were sent out in April of this year. They had 30 days to respond back. We got back only two things. My first question is, I'm curious why, if we kind of had this percolating since April, why this hasn't been brought to TIRZ, who's before now, and that's one question.
Well, that is easy. So we had a committee, and Craig, who's a representative from the TIRZ board, was on that committee.
Okay. Because when I learned about through city council workshop, seeing it on the agenda, and then asking questions about it, because I didn't know that we were, I didn't know we were to this point. The other question I have about the bid process was, and I had very little time because we got this on Friday afternoon, and so I started looking at the list of vendors, contractors that were sent bid packages apparently. It's pretty long list. A lot of these have absolutely nothing to do with any type of this development. Dallas Mechanical Group is one that just leapt out at me, but there are a lot of, I also spent a little bit of time this morning with what time I had, calling some of our other local, like Park Hill Smith Cooper, Friesen Nichols, those are both local, Urban Engineering Group out of Dallas, and just asked them, hey, did you guys receive a bid package on this? If you did, why did you not bid? I couldn't find anybody that could remember ever receiving a bid packet on it.
And I don't know the specifics on who they were sent to or what that process is.
I've got the list from the tabulation sheet, and it's 4 pages long.
I think it was 105.
5 pages long, five and a third pages long. But I'm a little concerned about just that part of it from an administrative standpoint. Are we doing a good job of soliciting bids? Are we following up? I don't see why we spent it to 105 people, some of which, like Terracon, they do. I know what Terracon does. I've used them before, but they just have nothing to do with a project like this. This is just not in their scope, in their wheelhouse. And also in doing that, are we really making sure that people that we know, like Park Hill Smith Cooper, whoever it may be, Friesen Nichols, companies that do this work, that they did get their bid package, they understand what it is. I don't know if 30 days. 30 days to me for a design firm seems like a pretty short time period to get a bid back, to go through the all the things. So I have a real concern about just the bid process, and so that's my question.
And I wouldn't know. I don't know if Mr. Marrero might know.
Good evening, Board. I think the first thing we probably need to do is understand what it was that we put out there, and it was a request for qualifications. Not an actual proposal, but qualifications. So we have an opportunity to solicit folks like Kelly and others through this sort of process so we can understand their background, so we can understand if they've got the sort of wherewithal to do a project like this. Now, to your specific question, Mr. Russell, as to why those firms that seemingly may not have that in their background, I think we have a list of people who we know are interested in downtown projects, and we just sent that to those folks. Certainly the big ones like Park Hill Smith and Cooper, Kimley Horn, those firms, I am certain that they were on those lists. If they weren't, we're certainly going to make sure. But beyond that, the project is listed on the city's website. The project is advertised. So our hope is that through their typical means of identifying projects like this, that they would have noticed that. But back to the point as to the qualification. So the first step in our process was to, again, get those proposals, get those qualifications back rather, so we could understand whether or not the firms that were interested in our project were in fact firms who had this sort of project in their background. Based on the two that we did receive, the committee suggested that we recommend KDC to the City Council. So that might be a little difference in what you, but I'm hoping rather that answers your question, Ms. Russell.
Well, I think this goes back to, I've heard this same similar complaint voiced about other city projects as to, how much we're soliciting bids and competitive bids and all that. I know we're going through all the technical, legal hoops that we have to go through, but at the same time, there often seems to be not a well-pointed focus on getting qualified firms to bid on these things. If we're sending out, RFQs or RFPs or whatever it is, are we really getting qualified firms? Are they really aware of it? We've run into this on ODC and other boards that kind of same thing. And so that's just kind of a general deal, but I'm a little, it makes me a little nervous when we only get back, on what's really kind of going to be a $7 million project, a $700,000 design bid.
Sure.
That to me would be a big enough project to get more than 2 people interested in it, if we'd done a good job of soliciting bids. And that's kind of my general statement, and I'm not throwing rocks at anybody because I don't know what all they did, but when I call 3 of them, and they say, I don't remember seeing anything like that, we can dig in the file and all. It kind of just makes me
Sure.
pause a little bit. Did we do a good job?
Sure. I want to believe that we do, because I said it, not only do we send to those who have expressed an interest in downtown, but we do advertise. We also post it on our website, but I also want to say in this case, and I'll confirm that we put it on the American Planning Association website. So we did. So that alone tells me that would give it exposure to any and all firms who are part of the American Planning Association, because there is a section in their website that talks about requests for proposals or requests for bids. So my assumption is that firms looked at it and perhaps thought, maybe it's too far out in West Texas. But my hope is that, again, that we are doing a good job of getting that information out there in the right places, where if we don't have their direct information, they're going to find it in the place that we typically know they would go to.
I have a quick question, and maybe, and I don't know if this is Michael or Casey or a Dan question. I guess a few questions, and pardon I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear on this. Casey, you said this was being paid for with CO money, correct?
Yes, sir, if I may.
Oh,
Mr.
absolutely,
Norris.
absolutely.
Yes, this was part of a debt issuance that the city did back in 2019. Specifically, there were several projects that were called out in that debt, and that is, this particular project was set out as a downtown improvement project. Within the context of that, we also did fire stations, we did some park stuff, some road stuff, so yes, sir.
Is any TIRZ board money being used for this?
No, sir, there's no TIRZ dollars in this project.
So, I understand that Chairman and John were both on the committee for this. Outside of that, I guess I don't understand how TIRZ is in, other than getting updated, what role TIRZ has in this or the scope, because we're only limited to TIRZ money, and we're advisory. So I guess I don't understand. I appreciate the update, but I'm not sure what more we have other than being updated.
Sir, Mr. Norris, so this is, as I indicated, a certificate of obligation project, a CO project. Council is the body that decides what to do with those TIRZ, with those CO dollars. Our intent was that once this contract was awarded, that this group would also be consulted as part of that development phase, if you will, to not only update the board as to what we were doing with the $7 million or with this particular contract, but to also make sure that the TIRZ board was fully aware of those projects that we were looking at, because we had every intent at some point, and we'll still at some point, I think, come to the TIRZ and seek some support for projects that may be ancillary to the one that we're doing.
So I guess just trying to understand the scope for today is we're just really being updated on this. There's not an ask for us.
No, sir.
I mean,
No,
that's
this is an
really all
update.
okay.
Mr. Chairman called me and asked we place this on the agenda. Again, we were going to do that anyway. We're just doing it a little sooner than what we anticipated.
Thank you.
Well, I think that, our purpose is to, we know our purpose is the board, but also to give the encouragement from this board that, you know, we're for it and give them the encouragement, yeah, we like the plan, let's move forward, we're behind it, you know, keep us in touch, and that way as things come along, say, well, now, you know, remember we talked about doing this, or, oh, yeah, we forgot about that, let's, you know, and work those things in, but as far as actually spending money, we're not spending any of our TIRZ money, but we just, I think they're just base asking for, this is where we're going, and hope you'll support it and that type of deal.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that. I just kind of didn't understand what specifically, because our role is limited here. And just what exactly we were being asked to do here in our limited role.
So I think I see this whole process different, but we talked about, doing a wayfinding project, and we don't hire somebody to just go do a wayfinding project, we hire somebody to run that project on everything we do.
So anything over $50,000 has to go through this project. And so what we're hoping is that in the design process of this, KDC and that group can get us, you know, like he said, $7 million isn't gonna do every single thing that we want. But we want biddable packages so that when we come to TIRZ in 6 months and say, hey, I really want updated wayfinding and it's $125,000, we've already gone through this whole process of getting the bid package ready, and I can just say, here it is, I need y'all's approval, what do y'all think? And then when y'all say yes, it's as easy as going and finding a contractor to do it. So this is doing all the behind the scenes work for all aspects. So wayfinding is included, the multi-purpose festival street is included, looking at all those things, lighting, where do we need it updated, and again, we only have $7 million, which is a lot of money, but that's not gonna cover everything that we need. But part of KDC's plan and part of that package that we're paying for is they will leave us with biddable material so that they've already done the legwork, and we can just, as we get money available, if we have $50,000 or $100,000, then we can piecemeal that out, but already have all this back work done, because I agree, it's a long process. We have been at this since April, and so, you know, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen in order for us to get to that spot. So this is just another stepping stone to where when we get the funds, we'll be able to move this process quickly.
Let me ask you a question. As we move forward in the process, let's say in the wayfinding that Don mentioned, we come back and, you know, said this is, you know, they will present, you know, a proposal, this is what we recommend, this is what we're looking at. Okay, then we get the proposal and say, well, wayfinding is gonna cost the entire thing, say $2 million. But we can right now, with the money we have, maybe just do a couple blocks, Jackson Street to up to Grant or take whatever, you know, we can do that for $750,000. Then that would be, they would come to this board and say, this is what we got, what, you know, we all support in this particular area, and we can give them our, again, it's not our money unless they want to do something else with additional money, but we give them encouragement, suggestions, or whatever it might need to be done.
No, I was just, my point was is that I didn't realize that, I mean, you're gonna spend more than $50,000 on every one of these projects. I didn't realize that we had to hire somebody to do it.
And let me, if I may, if you'll take a look at our proposal sometime, and Michael and his staff have beat us up pretty good on fees, actually, to get down to where we're at. We dropped our fees by about a third. We also reduced our scope of services by about a third in doing so. The wayfinding team that we have put onto our design team is, I would argue, the premier wayfinding team in the nation right now. The firm out of Austin, Texas, has done work all over the United States, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and all the way down to tiny little communities. They just got through doing El Paso's downtown. That was the one element that we thought was really, really critical, was that was a premier group. And internally, from our standpoint, that is the one group that we have not cut fees on in order to get to the numbers that the city would like to see us at. So we think that's a really important element.
I was just using wayfinding as an example. I just,
Yes, sir. So any project like this that is over that threshold, we have to then go out and get all of these services done.
Does TIRZ have money of its own?
Yes,
Could TIRZ pick up some of these projects?
absolutely, and we would like that,
Like
yes.
this wayfinding is cheap enough and TIRZ has the money for it, and y'all don't have the money. Could TIRZ pick it up?
I will tell you, it's our intent to get as much as we can for the dollars that we do have. And then if there are projects that are left undone or projects that,
That
we-
we find important?
yes, sir, we will certainly bring those to you and let you guys consider that. That's kind of the whole purpose of the TIRZ is to help in those downtown improvements. But our intent is to take the dollars we do have, maximize those, get as many projects as we can out of there. Now, understand that the pedestrian plaza is a great idea, but there's also road work that needs to be done. There's lighting work that will be as part of this project. If we find things that aren't in this area but are critical for us to do, we're gonna ask Kelly to look at those. Be that, let's say, an ADA issue or sidewalk issues. Those things will also need to be addressed. So we're gonna try and maximize those, but
Right.
those projects that we think fit within the context of the TIRZ, it is our hope that you certainly consider those.
And we could go make our own list out of what you've done and what's important to us in order.
Well, and I would echo that to some degree. Strategy-wise, internally, if we move forward with this, is we would come in and develop what we would call a base plan internally that we know is going to come in under budget, period. We're safe. And then we would have various ad alternates that the city would come in and prioritize that we could add on to get us up to that. But particularly, let's talk about like wayfinding, that's a really good example. We're probably gonna come in and design a standard that then, by its very nature, is echoed throughout the district in downtown. Now, with funding available, we may only be able to afford 3 of them right now. But we're also gonna find out that for that standard, that's a $387,000 standard. Now then, you have the capability of coming in and extrapolating that throughout downtown. Same thing, benches, crosswalks, handicap ramps, that type of thing. So you'll be able to come back in off that 7 million with somewhat unlimited projects for the future that you could pick and choose from.
I want to ask a numbers thing, because I want to make sure I understand this right. So we're talking about really this initial phase being 2 blocks long, and we're talking about $7 million.
Very generically at this point in time. Yeah. The money's correct. Now, as we get into this and we start talking, we may find that it's in our best interest to put 4.5 million into Jackson and 2.5 million somewhere else. That is an undecided unknown right now. But
I mean, the numbers to me is just a taxpayer just seem unbelievable when you start talking about $3.5 million for a block. And that's really what we're talking about here. Kerry, what are you guys spending, what is OC spending on the plaza?
Just the phase 1 is $3 million.
$3 million for a whole block redevelopment with the turf and the splash pads and all that kind of stuff. You know, I just, I guess that's the part that just kind of gives me heartburn when, it becomes another $80,000 Christmas tree and things like that, and people just, kind of just choke on it. When you start asking taxpayers to spend, to think about developing 1 block, and you're talking about spending $3.5 million.
But I don't think this board has anything to do with that.
I don't think they do, but I do know that we have some, I think responsibility is kind of shepherding some of the downtown stuff to just say, hey, is this really, and does it, we haven't even really had a chance as a board to look and see if it lines up, how well it lines up with our master plan or anything like that. I mean, I haven't had time to do that, having received it on Friday afternoon. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff here that kind of gives me heartburn.
this is actually on page 18 of the master plan. This is what they discuss. This is what is talked about and mentioned. So we're not reinventing anything from that standpoint. Our concern professionally is that with $7 million along a thoroughfare, particularly Grant or Texas, where you're at 35, 40 miles an hour at times, as one of our consultants put it, you have 6 crosswalks and a couple of sidewalks, and you just spent $7 million. So proportionally, that's where I'm getting at. Proportionally, your funding is going to go much further over here on Jackson than it's going to go on your other.
Well, and again, nothing is set in stone. This is to hire KDC and that group to get us to the design point. Nothing has been designed, nothing has been set in stone. We have to hire them, and then the committee will meet again and figure out what's best. Part of that is going to be talking to business owners, particularly on Grant, on Jackson, on Texas. What are their thoughts?
Have we not done that to death, Casey? I mean, seriously?
I
mean,
haven't.
we did that with Charette's and the whole 9 yards. We did that with Kimley Horn. That's what we spent the $75,000. I mean, have we not done that to death of community surveying
Right, and this would be different because that was for what do they want to see in their downtown for the master plan. This is specific to, this is the business owners, this is their front door, and what is their opinion? What would they like to see? Is this going to hurt them? Do they not want it on Texas because it's going to impede business for up to 2 years? Do they want it on Jackson? Do they want it on, this is specific to the business owners. I know for the master plan, y'all did a lot of public outreach. That was to the whole public. That included also business owners. But I think that's just part of it whenever you're doing anything citywide and you're a city organization and municipality is getting input. Again, this is going to affect the businesses, and so we do want their direct contact. And their opinions, and so it'll be meeting with the TIRZ board, it'll be meeting with DOI and everybody who's gonna be involved and kind of figure out what's the best plan and give KDC the direction. We had 2 different firms look at this so far and look at our downtown footprint, and Jackson has been suggested. So Jackson was suggested by Kimley Horn. When they did the master plan, they took a look at our entire downtown footprint, and they said, if you were to put in a festival street, here's where we would do it. So that was one. KDC then came, and in preparation for their design package, they looked at our entire footprint and said, if we were to put in a festival street, here's where we would put it. Odessa Arts, they're about to have a cultural plan put out. They had a individual group come out and do an overview of downtown and where they would see a festival street. And again, they picked Jackson. So when the committee got together and we were looking at how are we best going to spend this $7 million, where are we going to get the most bang for our buck, and what is the community going to get in return, Jackson was suggested. I know there's opposition from some people who don't want it on Jackson. So all of that's going to be discussed. We just have to hire KDC or a group before we can have those discussions.
I'd like to hear, Craig, you and John, y'all were part of your thoughts? Where we're going?
When I was there representing downtown Odessa, we did talk to 2 firms. Both had great ideas. And I had talked to some city staff and others that have used both firms. Hold yours, they didn't talk too bad about you. One problem they did have with other firms we hire that's out of our area, if we have a problem, they're in Dallas. If we're in the middle of a project, I may need you here now. And they're like, well, we can be there in 5 or 6 hours, or we'll be there tomorrow. That was one of the things why I was more for a local firm, and I was. I'm also more private business. I don't know how they do this with the city all the time. It would drive me nuts that it takes a year for anything to start, and it's twice the price. And that's one thing I got out of so much of it. $7 million sounds like a ton of money, but once you start doing this project, it's not. I mean, main thing I want is trash cans. We're getting a lot of trash on Grant with the bars and other stuff. And that's some of the things we've talked about. And in their plan, may not be the trash cans today, but they're gonna say, here's a trash can plan, I guess, of here's where I would put them in the future and here's what we would do. And it's kind of to start this project, but have other smaller projects we can do down the road. And that may be something where Casey with DOI says, hey, DOI may have part of the money for the trash cans, but I need more money. I need help from us. And she has some great ideas on things on that also. I'm not super huge on Jackson. I like Texas better, but if we can do Jackson, like, great for 2 blocks, and it's pretty impressive, and then we've got the little fingerling streets coming off, we can still have a larger area, I'm okay with that. Versus we do Texas and we just kind of halfway do it. That's one thing we've got to watch. I mean, I don't want truly us to spend $7 million, and I'm on this committee, and they're like, look, you wasted the citizens' money. So, yeah, I've been very opinionated on a lot of it. So, Craig has also, even though I'll say he's not. But that's kind of where we're at, or I'm at. Craig?
Yeah, just kind of echoing that. I mean, when we presented and then the master plan update was adopted, I mean, I seem to remember you were all here when I asked, what are we doing first? And the answer was, well, first, we're gonna hire somebody to design it and give us a design and implementation. As I'm reading, design and implementation right on this plan. But that's part of the deal. And again, this is, if I had to do it, we wouldn't have to do all this. I mean, we know what we want. We know kind of where we want it. We want wayfinding. We want, take a look at any of these pictures. We want a lot of this stuff. But in order to get it, we've got to have somebody to tell us how to do it safely and where it will last, where we're not just throwing our money down the drain. And out of the 2 presentations, again, I will echo what we heard back from city services on several of their projects, that delays were happening because the firms weren't here. That was the biggest cause of some of the issues with, you know, definitely, Steve Patton had some issues with parks and, you know, this or that. I will also say there was a lot that was cut out of it because we got insane sticker shock at that first price. But when it was explained that, okay, well, we were looking at 2nd to 8th, Bernice to Adams, you know, let's refocus our efforts down on an area, and what Kelly said that I haven't heard today, you know, if you have $100,000 to build you a house, you build a pretty good house, but $100,000 for a bathroom and what is it, Architectural Digest? So focusing the money and energy down on a project like this just seems to be the way to get it to go the furthest. The comma and is now we also get the kind of rest of the story that, you know, as Mr. Pierce said, we've got some TIRZ money. So should some of these projects come up, like fixing the sidewalk on the west side of Texas where it's 4 different sidewalks on a block, those things can be projects that the TIRZ can undertake. We can afford something like that. But you know, kind of to the point, I don't think we'll ever be at a point again where we're gonna have $7 million. So I have given it careful consideration. I believe the committee has gone through the process like we should. And that is the point where we are is, again, kind of up to the council to wade through this. And we come in after that. I mean, you know, as Gavin said, this is 0 TIRZ dollars. We don't have a dog in the fight yet, so.
I believe they went by, the best way to find the proper people to do this is RFQs, not going out for cost. Because then you're looking at a price, which is a horrible way to find the best qualified person to do the job. I was the county's 36 years, by far the best way to find the right person, RFQ. So if y'all looked at it that way, y'all found the right person. Be best to find 4 or 5 firms, go that way. But if you went this way, you got 2 people out, look at their qualifications, by far the best way to do it.
Well, I know at the college that project that we have, we do this, same way, send out RFQs, and we've even sent them out to people who have done work for us before.
Right.
And I came in particular project, well, we sent out 10 RFQs and got 3 back. And then after we got them back, we sent out, of course, then after that, well, okay, you're qualified, we'll send you a bid package, and 1 returned it.
Yeah,
You call the others and say, well, we just don't have the crew right now, we can't do it in that amount of time, all this, So I mean, again, it's, when you do everything you can,
Right.
and being that we, we have some estimates about what we're looking at. Now, if it came in and it's, you had 1 person, they said, well, yeah, I'll do your thing for $3 million. Well, we gotta do something different,
Right.
but I mean, it's just,
Sometimes you send out 10 bids, and you get one person bring it back,
Mhm.
and they're all qualified, you send them out to.
Yeah.
I don't know who all they send them to, but you don't have a choice sometimes. And these people seem to be quite qualified.
When I was at TDA with Casey last week, I talked to another design firm that was there, and I brought up the same thing. They think Odessa's great, we're wonderful and all that, and told them about what we were doing. They said they're from Houston, they wouldn't have boots on the ground, and $7 million to implement all of this, it's really not worth their time, they're really busy. So $7 million to us is a whole lot, some of the companies, I guess, it's not.
I just see an extra step that we, at the hospital, in the hospital district, we don't take that extra step. I don't do that at my house. So to me, this is an extra step that costs 10% of the project.
It is, and it's,
And I just don't see that.
Is that part of, to that point, and I think that's a fair point, is that part of a
At the hospital, you'll have to hire
a city
consultants.
ordinance or city mandate, that's kind of how that works, Michael or Dan?
What we're talking about, what we're talking about, Mr. Norris, is biddable documents, right?
Right,
So
right.
when Mr. Kelly looks at that area, let's say that downtown market festival area, he will design drainage, he will design the thickness of the road that needs to be redone. If we're doing pavers, he will design that. All of that does require that it be engineered. Lighting will have to be engineered. There are dollar thresholds that are required that you must kick in professional services.
That's that 50,000 threshold?
Yes, sir. And again, the type of work also mandates that you have engineered type of work. But I guess one of the things that I know Casey said it, and I'll reiterate it, this is not the master plan. The master plan gave us an overall vision for downtown. This is the actual design for the projects that we're talking about. And I think, again, what we'll focus on is the things that are important for downtown. The festival area was specifically called out in the downtown master plan, so that'll get a lot of focus. But we're also going to look at other needs within downtown. I will tell you from a staff's perspective, we have road needs in downtown. Not every road in downtown is in good shape. As I said, there are sidewalk needs. So those things will also be part of this. There is a focus area, a concentration area, if you will, but it won't be specifically relegated to just that and nothing else.
What do you need from us today?
We just want to give you an update.
Okay.
So this is the update, and I hope you have enough information. And my hope is, and as well as that of the city, and I'm sure the council at some point, is to come back when we have these plans that we know we're not going to be able to afford all of it, that there is something in there that might appeal to the TIRZ board, and something that we can bring back to you and ask for your assistance.
Well, I personally think this is a great springboard and catalyst for the TIRZ board to do future projects that can come off of this. And, I mean, because for us to pull together a project like this from the TIRZ board, it would, I don't know how long it would take.
You gotta start somewhere, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, and I just look at it like, and I guess maybe you disagree with Don, but I look like this, basically what you're doing is you're hiring an architect. When you go build a building, you have to have an architect, do all the engineering designs and, you know, and just for example, on our health science building out at Odessa College, we had to, of course, pour the concrete footings and all this kind of stuff, and they got all those done. Of course, they had to be tested. They came out and tested them, and they didn't pass. Got to tear them all down and redo it. Delayed our project 60 days. It didn't cost us anything because the contractor didn't do it right. So, I mean, to me, that's what we're doing is that, you know, we're hiring somebody to say, this is what needs to be done, this is kind of the cost of it. Now, what do y'all want to do?
Right. And again, moving forward, we'll have this, and so as money comes available, we'll be able to cherry pick from what we're doing now into smaller projects that we can do one bite at a time, and we won't have to go through this whole process again because it's already been done. So really, it will speed it up in the future. It's just right now, it's a long process, and so we're just now at the beginning of it.
And I think as far as the timeline, it's good to remember that we were kind of forced to take a 2-year break. This all would have done, I mean, we'd be out having a festival right now, had it not been for COVID. So it's been long, it's been tiring, it's been, you know, we've been through it. Anything else?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all very much for your support, and we hope to come back and the city have passed it and be able to move forward and have some good plans to how we're gonna make downtown even better than it already is. So, thank you all very much.
Thank you. We need to adjourn, yeah.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Hurry up.
Thank you, Kelly. See you again tomorrow?
What are you doing now? So what's the difference between, those
Hi guys,
laminated
have a good day.
interlocking?
Yeah, you don't wanna go too thin. You need to be at
I really will this time. I went out of town last night.
just the, not including the pad. You wanna go at least 5.5 millimeters. Just for the plank itself, and then, because you get down below that, what we found, there's fixing to be a huge class action lawsuit out there waiting. They made a lot of these really thin ones, and the locking systems are too